welcome to Storyskin channel. Today, we will talk about a short horror film Stucco, released in 2019. This is a film about guilt, depression, and the feeling of stasis experienced by a woman who is suffering with agoraphobia. She finds a suspicious hollow wall in her house that leads to a series of events. So, let's get into the details. The movie starts with a lady in her kitchen. She reaches for a first aid kit while her phone keeps buzzing. She checks it out but decides not to answer. She's fixing up her finger, which she probably cut from running with scissors. The caller leaves a message, seems like an ex-boyfriend who's heartbroken and all that stuff. We also find out there was another man involved. Now, this lady, Stephanie, heads to the living room but trips and spills her spaghetti all over. As she cleans up her not-so-exciting meal, she spots 2 drops of blood. She gets some cleaning stuff, but her efforts just make the mess worse and bigger. Now, with no meal and still hungry, Stephanie checks her fridge, but it's empty. 2 minutes later, she checks her fridge again, and it's still empty. So she decides to order some food. While she waits for her food delivery, she marks the spot on the wall where she wants to hang a painting. She grabs a hammer to put in a nail, but oops, she accidentally makes a small hole in the wall. That's a bit of a clumsy moment. Suddenly, there's a knocking at her door, and Stephanie starts feeling anxious. She tiptoes quietly toward the door and leans her back against the wall. Her eyes are closed, and she slides down, waiting for whoever, or maybe whatever, is outside to go away. After a moment, she quickly undoes several locks to take a peek outside, and it seems like it's safe now. So, Stephanie opens the door again and takes her food inside. Stephanie is agoraphobic, which means she's scared of going outside. She literally never leaves her house. Later, Stephanie uses her phone to dictate a text message to her landlord. She's thankful for the place she's living in, but she's curious about its blueprint. You see, one of the walls seems to be really hollow. What's interesting is that her phone perfectly translates her spoken words into text without making any mistakes. At night, she's brushing her teeth, but at the same time, she's looking closely at her own eye. She's having trouble sleeping, and that hole in the wall is on her mind. The moment she closes her eyes, something strange happens. The wall in her room suddenly moves forward. Stephanie's eyes open wide in surprise, but it turns out it was just a dream. When she wakes up, Stephanie has a little session with her therapist. The therapist thinks it's time for her to come out of her shell and visit the therapist's office in person. Stephanie coughs as a response. The therapist suggests that it could be a great opportunity for her to step outside and go to the pharmacy. Stephanie smiles widely, agreeing to the challenge. But if you look into her eyes, you can tell she's a little scared deep down. She might be a bit of a scaredy cat. After the call with her therapist, Stephanie gets dressed and holds onto her keys, staring at the door. The anxiety inside her grows bigger. She just can't bring herself to do it. Stephanie coughs once more, and this time, she thinks she hears another cough coming from the wall. Maybe it's just in her imagination. Instead of looking into that further, Stephanie decides to try guided meditation. During the meditation, Stephanie is told to imagine a happy place where she creates her own throne. She's supposed to sit on this throne and relax. But then, the doorbell rings. Stephanie had ordered some cough medicine and maybe some chocolate, which is her idea of relaxation. Later, as she's heading to bed, Stephanie walks past the hole in the wall, and there's hair sticking out of it. Before going to sleep, she makes sure to watch some short videos to help her relax. It doesn't take long before she's completely relaxed and fast asleep. But then, in the middle of the night, something strange happens. Stephanie is drawn to the wall as if it's calling out to her. With a hungry look in her eyes, she slowly approaches the wall. It's like something is alive in there. And suddenly, a single beam of light reveals what seems to be some kind of tasty snack. Stephanie leans forward, and for a moment, she thinks she sees something like a hamburger or some kind of food. In the morning, Stephanie wakes up from her dream, or maybe it was more like a pleasant daydream. Anyway, she's startled by frantic knocking at her door. It turns out to be her ex, really wanting to talk. She's so scared that she collapses next to a wall, trying not to make a sound or be seen. Her ex keeps bothering her, wanting to know how long she was seeing someone else. He gets really angry and pounds his fist against the door. Stephanie's eyes widen because he knows she's inside and her car is parked outside. After a while, he gives up and walks over to the window, slamming it shut and leaving what looks like a note before he speeds away. Stephanie carefully examines the note that says, "You can't ignore me." She wonders if that's really true. Concerned for her safety, Stephanie contacts the police and obtains a restraining order against her ex. The officer suggests installing a security camera, especially since Stephanie lives alone. So, she decides to follow the advice and sets up the camera. However, her coughing symptoms are getting worse. Later, in the bathroom, she takes some cough syrup to ease her discomfort. At the same time, strange and unsettling sounds, like gurgling and bubbling, can be heard coming from the wall. It's not just sounds. There's moisture leaking, and there's even a crack forming. It seems like the wall is on the verge of bursting. Stephanie's persistent cough is becoming a real issue, and it's starting to worry her. She checks her phone and receives a message from her landlord. It turns out there was some kind of secret renovation, and that wall wasn't supposed to be there. Stephanie continues sipping on her cough syrup, trying to soothe her persistent cough. As she reads the message, the person who sent it mentions that some might find this unexpected home addition a bit unsettling. However, Stephanie has a different perspective. She finds it kind of exciting in a spooky way. Still, despite her fascination, she closes the door to that mysterious wall. However, things take a strange turn. Somehow, Stephanie ends up sleeping in the hallway, right beneath the hole in the wall. Maybe it's the cough syrup playing tricks on her. She manages to get back on her feet, but as she stumbles to her room, she steps on something unusual. It's a tooth. Out of the blue, without any warning, she shoves all 10 of her fingers into her mouth, trying to count all her teeth. She could have just used her tongue, but Stephanie likes to do things the extra way. Terrified by this bizarre discovery, she backs away into one of the rooms and quickly shuts the door. The wall starts making really unsettling, stomach-churning noises that keep getting louder and scarier. To figure out what's going on, Stephanie decides to check her security camera footage. But what she sees is beyond puzzling. It's herself, walking up to the hole in the wall and coughing something up. Whatever she's coughing up, it just keeps getting bigger. When she takes a closer look, she realizes it's a whole arm she's sneaking through that hole. The strangest part is that she can't remember ever doing such a thing. This freaks her out, and she rushes toward the door, but she can't do anything more than just stand there and stare at it. Her fear of going outside is stronger than ever. However, at that very moment, she suddenly feels a burst of courage, like she's ready to face whatever is happening. With newfound determination, Stephanie reaches for a sledgehammer and starts demolishing the flimsy wall. She's really going at it, causing quite a bit of damage. Once she's busted through, there's a doorway leading to an unknown place. Stephanie stumbles in and finds herself in a foggy, mysterious void. In the distance, she spots something that looks oddly familiar. It's a throne, just like the one her meditation instructor had her imagine. But something's off about this throne. It's not an ordinary chair. It seems to be alive and calling out to her. As she gets closer, she feels this magnetic pull, like the throne is tugging at her. She tries to resist, but it's hard to fight that gravitational force. She's inching closer and closer, and it almost seems like she's leaning back while moving forward. But strangely, as she nears the throne, she starts enjoying the sensation willingly. Stephanie decides to sit on the throne, and it's surprisingly cozy. The chair even crowns her like a queen, which is a bit strange but oddly enjoyable. She starts to feel relief and relaxation, almost like she's back in her meditation. But then things take a creepy turn. The chair clings onto her, and it feels like it never wants to let go. Stephanie desperately struggles to break free. Eventually, she manages to escape its grasp, grabs the trusty hammer, and smashes the chair to bits. The scene fades out and then snaps back to reality like an Eminem moment. Stephanie has conquered her real monster, agoraphobia. She's outside now. She looks at the wreckage she's made and probably thinks, how am I going to pay for this mess? In the end, the moral of the story is pretty clear. Get out there and touch some grass, folks.